Hello, everybody, and welcome to TableTakes. It is the Friday right before Christmas Eve, December, holiday seasons for those who are celebrating the old Xmas, Christmas, happy holidays. And sorry, Hanukkah already passed a few days ago, but we still got Christmas in this season, and it looks like, oh, Peter, you're looking very festive. Look at
I
that.
got my Gen Con merch shirt.
Oh,
Christmas
all right.
Christmas sweater.
Ooh, very nice,
Wow,
very
Dragon
nice. Ooh.
Genevieve.
Repping the merch, we love it. Speaking of rep, let's see, how have you been doing, Peter? We missed you last week. What were you doing? Exciting things.
I went down to Portland for the weekend and I saw Gen Con's JC, who's lives down in Portland. So we saw him, and we saw Dee's BFF, who lives in Southern Oregon. So we go down to Portland sometimes and meet up with her. It's kind of a mid spot, and we just hung out. Dee's favorite restaurant is in Portland, so that's also another good reason to go to Portland. Yeah, so we went down there. That's where I was. Sorry, did you miss me?
So much. So much. So much. And I'm glad you're welcome back. But we always have, of course, Anita coming in and bringing ray of sunshine and filling our empty hearts with greatness. Speaking of Anita, Noir, how have you been?
What do I have to do with Anita? That was a weird transition. What are you trying to say, huh? No,
Maybe. Yeah.
I'm doing fine. I've been slighted twice by you. What about Happy Kwanzaa, huh? What
Oh,
about
sorry, Kwanzaa,
Ooh.
my bad.
wow. Ooh. No, it hasn't started yet. It's fine. No, I've just been vibing. I'm officially on Christmas break from my big boy full-time job, so I don't know what to do with all this time and not being depressed. So I'm happy.
Yay,
Yay!
happy.
Eh.
But no, I feel like you should give Winston some quality cuddles. So that's the first thing you need to do with your time.
His name is Watson. Good.
Watson, not Winston. Why do I keep thinking it's Winston? It's not Winston, it's Watson.
Wow. Well, I'm gonna need some patience for this episode.
Come on, Bonsai. It's elementary.
I keep being bad.
I've been slighted thrice and we barely started.
It's because I'm picking a fight with Noir. So much so that, never mind about Noir. JV, I want to hear about you.
Hi. You might notice that my background is a completely different color palette of blurred nonsense. It's because I'm at my dad's house in Virginia. Him, my step family, all of the folks. I'm going to see a bunch of folks for this season. I tried last year. Didn't work out last year. There was a blizzard. There was a storm. All the flights got canceled. Had to do Christmas in April. Wasn't as fun. But this year we're doing it all. They're taking me all over Virginia. I'm going to be seeing so much of my family. Oh my gosh. I'm glad I have table takes to sort of, even out, balance my week, and then I get right into the crazy stuff.
Oh, but it still sounds like a good time going around and everything.
Yeah.
And, thank you to El Nino for making the winters in the United States a little bit warmer this year. So people don't get stuck in storms like that. As for myself, I finally got my Christmas tree really, really late because, when you have a baby that's less than a year, apparently that sucks up a lot of your time and you really don't get a lot of things done that you would think you would get done. Surprise! Parenthood. But it's still going to be fun, and I can't wait to open presents this weekend, even though I know all the toys are not going to mean anything. It's going to be all about the trash, all the wrapping paper and bows. That's what he's going to focus on. But in any case, I think we should roll right in. There's nothing better than an announcement of Dice Tower announces its inaugural batch of games for the Hall of Fame. So if you guys don't know, we've done a lot of things with Dice Tower. Of course, they had their award ceremony that we broadcasted while at Gen Con and a bunch of stuff. And they have done this series of list of board and card game Hall of Fames. It's not actually a general tabletop game one where it's only board games. They also like have like cards included in this. All the inductees that they use have to be, of course, more than 10 years old and have a credited designer. So anything like games that are like card games that are you can't really tell where the origins are, like blackjack and everything like that, they don't get included. But like so like public domain games like chess is also one of them that do not get included. But also, other than, of course, them being 10 years old, designed by a credited designer or publisher, the most important thing they need to have is the design and impact when it comes to the hobby and the world of like tabletop gaming. For example, you might recognize some of the people on the list that a lot of people are kind of like Monopoly, Risk, and stuff, and Raw. A lot of really, really good games that a lot of people can make note of. I think so. I asked this off question, but I do recognize that one of the older games they had is called Pit, and I didn't know. And thank you, Peter, for educating me. Maybe you could educate us again what Pit was.
We used to play it with forks around the dinner table, and first one that goes out would grab a fork, and you just want to make sure you weren't like keeping track of the forks. That was basically it.
It's all about forks. It's called Pit, but it's about forks.
I know.
I don't know if you guys had a chance to like look at any of the games. Is there any ones that really like jump out to you out of this like top, and also like how they induct? Like, what are your like thought process about the game having to be more than 10 years old and represented by a prominent designer or anything like that?
That's interesting. I have never created a gargantuan list like this or had to consolidate all of this data. So I think as far as trying to fit all of these things into a top list or whatever, listicle, I guess, is pretty tough stuff. So I think it's really cool. I like seeing all of the different games listed out with their years right next to them like this. It gives you a really big picture of just how long board gaming has like been popularized and like the timeline between classic to like the first jump or like the first like foray into like the more casual hobby core gaming that we do now. It's really cool.
All right. No, that's just
I'm really
cool.
sad to see Munchkin on here. That's unfortunate.
It
That
does
makes a
have
great-
an impact, though. You're talking about it, so it has impacted the world. There's a lot of people who have like essentially you say Munchkins and they go, so that has a lasting imprint on the tabletop community, better or not. But that's enough of that. You know what we need to do? We need to talk about things being added to tabletop games, like a Gamescom, Peter?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's my turn. I'm still looking at the list of games and going like, there aren't many war games on this list. I mean, there's Axis and Allies and ASL, and that's it. I mean, I say like the whole wargaming category got really screwed.
It's
That's
just wall to wall games. It's wall to wall nuts.
It's nuts.
It's
nuts. I
nuts.
mean, they didn't even include Battle of the Bulge, where nuts was a very important part of the whole battle. It's true. All right, I'll do my headline now. Fine. Okay. Gamescom. Okay. This feature was brought to us by Jeffrey Dome Sanchez, our dear friend over at ICV2. Okay. Gamescom, the world's largest video game trade show held in Cologne, Germany, announced that it is adding a tabletop games area to its convention. In the meantime, Electronic Entertainment Expo E3, a North American video game trade show, announced they were shutting down. Okay, Gamescom. This has been running since 2009. It attracts about 320,000 visitors. Now, by the way, I as a Gen Con representative, I have to interject. I assume they're talking turnstile, where they measure one person who's there for 5 days as 5 attendees. Just want to make sure we're clear on that. So from over 100 countries every year. The addition of tabletop games area to this event is a major change for Gamescom, as it had been mostly about video games for its entire existence. This is the strategic upgrade for Gamescom, primarily because tabletop games is now a billion-dollar industry that will likely add new visitors. Additionally, video game licenses have been more frequently appearing as mainstay IPs for tabletop games, and vice versa, by the way, we should point out. Gamescom will happen again in August 21 to 25, 2024. On the other side of the pond, here in the US, E3 announced that it has shut down. E3 was first launched in 1995, but the show began to lose popularity in the years prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic forced cancellations of E3 in 2020 and 2021 were too much to bear. The show was then canceled in 2022 and 2023 after they had problems finding exhibitors. So my personal take on this, I have never attended Gamescom, but I don't think there's actually a tabletop games trade show in Europe that is a trade show like GAMA here is in the US for tabletop games. So this might make some sense. I think most companies who want to do business in Europe tend to attend either UK Games Expo or Essen Spiele. And but those are both consumer shows, and it can be a little distracting to try and do B2B business, B2B, business to business. Yeah, that at a consumer show. So it seems like a reasonable opportunity. Will it work? It all comes down to whether companies really want to do it and whether they show up.
That's awesome. Awesome to hear. I guess like also, yeah, if you don't mind, I mean, like honestly, at more conventions, I would just like to see more tabletop areas, tabletop gaming areas, because like once all the various video game conferences and, you know, like even special effects conferences and stuff like that all merge into like more gaming comic book conferences and stuff like that, anime, I feel like the more we like integrate all of the various different nerdums, as people would say, I think it'd just be better for the community in general because we can all bridge.
As long as we still have our places too, though.
No, I'm super excited to see TTRPG spreading. I think my hope is that it'll expose people who don't necessarily have an interest to TTRPG, so then they can come to places that focus solely on TTRPG. That's right, Gen Con, baby. I want more people there. Come on, let's go.
It's a bridge strategy. That's right.
I've definitely never been to Gamescom. I barely ever hear about some of the, I wouldn't even say smaller. I would just say less local because it's all the way in Germany, right?
Yeah.
I barely hear about any of the conventions happening outside the United States. You know, there's PAX and then there's Gen Con, and E3 was always one of the big ones that's talked about. So them announcing that they're not going to be having it anymore, you know, it's a huge bummer for people who are, you know, huge fans of video games. And a lot of times you don't see tabletop gamers sort of intersecting in public. You know, we're all gamers, quote unquote, and we have our different vices, but it's nice to see something all encompassing like this. You know, the way PAX was doing for a while, seeing it over in Germany too. This is going to be really cool.
Yes. More gaming everywhere. Now to switch up some news, we're gonna go ahead and dive in deep. If you've been looking at the news, like all about Twitter and stuff like that, and a lot of discussion now that you know, the robots. Javion, tell us about more.
Yeah, I think while we're sort of closing out 2023, we should definitely take a look back at some of the more impactful things that we've seen, not just in the tabletop industry, but as a whole, the entire world, right? AI has been a huge impact on how we think about art, how we think about the industry, and how it's going to be moving forward into the future. You know, how we think about each other and how we treat one another. Two large companies, not just WotC, but also Nightfall Games, have come under a lot of scrutiny when it comes to their AI art. It looks like Dungeons and Dragons, which has a lot of information coming out soon from PAX Unplugged. Well, that had already happened. That was released at PAX Unplugged. A lot of people on Twitter were taking a look. Well, excuse me, X. A lot of people on X.com were taking a look at the art and comparing to the player's handbook that had been released so long ago. And it looked like the dwarf warrior that was depicted on the front of this new art that they unveiled might have had some similarities to some AI art that we've seen around the internet. Now, a lot of the posts that were posting about it we're talking about a web tool that analyzes images and spits out a chance, a percentage, a number that talks about the chance that it was created by an AI versus like a real person, which is really fascinating that we even have to have a tool like that it was developed so quickly. I mean, we've only really seen the surge in popularity of AI in just the past couple of years. So it's good that we're developing tools like this, and hopefully they become more and more reliable as we continue into the future. But it looks like Hasbro and D&D Beyond have put out a statement after getting enough feedback that people were thinking that, oh, this might be AI art. Was it, illegitimate because of this? And on X, they put out this statement. We became aware of community concerns that generative AI was used in an art piece we recently teased. We confirmed with the artist that no generative AI was used, which is consistent with our artist guidelines restricting it. It's important that we keep an eye on which companies are saying, hey, we are taking a stance against AI art. We will pay for the art. We will pay artists, and we will continue to do that because we don't want to let that part of our community slide. We know how valuable they are to us. And we should be keeping track of which companies are allowing that kind of thing to pervade their systems. So the artists themselves, for the art that is on the 2024 Players Handbook, actually came out and put a statement saying that, hey, I worked really hard on this for 2 weeks. My director was really proud of the work that I did. This is not using any AI art. So there's that. And then we also have the folks at Nightfall Games with their Terminator RPG. And a lot of people were taking a look at that as well, saying like, hey, I think maybe there was some AI generated artwork in there. Well, unlike the D&D situation, Nightfall Games did their due diligence, checking out using the same tool, or maybe a different one actually. They were using a tool to decide whether or not it was using AI art, and they found that this software called Midjourney was able to detect a 99.9% match, saying that it was almost definitely using some AI generated images, using some Photoshop techniques and other AI generated artwork to create it. So unfortunately, Nightfall had to recall a bunch, over a dozen different pieces of art that they had commissioned and paid for. Here in their statement, they say, it matters because AI art is theft. It creates art from a massive, massive portfolio of art and images that have been created by real people. It then splurges out poor mockeries of these arts without any consideration of the artists, and can be done by any Tom, Dick, or Harry, etc. So, we're seeing a lot of decisions being made about this stuff, and I think we're just going to have to continue to watch when people make these kinds of decisions and decide for ourselves how much AI should be allowed to help us and how much we should be reliant on AI for things like that are as divisive as this. What do you guys think? I know we've talked about AI a lot this year. How are you feeling about it so far and how it's developed in our industry, the tabletop gaming?
Well, I do think it's interesting that because the AI art, AI generation algorithms are based to some extent on real art, and where did they get the real art? There's that whole issue. But it also kind of makes sense that if that's the case, that at some point, some real art, actual art could be generated that somebody might think, that looks like AI art. I mean, it's feeding it the other way around, right? If the AI art is looking at real art to make art, then somebody making real art, somebody might think it looked like AI art. So that is a new dimension to this problem that I had not considered until today.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is just a failure of legislation. A bunch of different communities are being led to try and figure out how to approach this, and I think it's bigger than any one community. I think at some point there needs to be governance in order to protect artists, and to protect people from being taken advantage of. But until then, I'm glad to see that publishers and companies are trying to do right, even if it takes exposing them to do it.
Yeah, D&D, the company behind D&D anyway, has been dealing with so much lately already. I know that they didn't want this on their plate at all. They jumped out as soon as they possibly could once they had the evidence to back it up.
I think, if you guys don't mind, I do have a controversial view on AI generated art and everything like that. I think of it as a tool, not necessarily like what is it called? Like exact like thing that are people against. Like how I see this as a history argument is that how people used to use this argument against digital art versus real painting art. And I think there should still be spaces for that. And I still think that maybe and that a lot of people who say that typing out this stuff is like easy as pie. No, you have to actually be a very competent writer to like get exactly details on how you want in terms of like for people who are doing photorealistic like AI art, you have to actually really type in like, oh, I want you to use this type of lens with this type of lighting that's from Sony with this kind of filter exactly for the AI to generate that stuff. At the other hand, I do think it is something that could be used as a tool, especially if you have an artist who has this dedicated style. They can teach this AI their style and like be able to help create newer and exciting things. I don't know. I'm kind of cool because I see this as like my step into transhumanism with the whole idea of AI. I know we can have differentiating opinions and I respect that. I just see it more as a tool, like how woodworking in terms of there are people who hate laser cutters and they think that's cheating versus I'm like, no, you can make a lot of really cool, complicated things with laser cutters that you wouldn't
Give
normally
up.
be able to make.
Don't
But
give
that's
up
about
hope in the singularity, Bonsai. The
You know,
singularity, it's coming.
singularity.
don't worry, Bonsai. We would never cast you aside because of your opinions.
Thank you. You know what? But hopefully, everything goes great and if not, it'll just enter into the grimdark. But you know what's cool about grimdark? We can get a view of it cuz Amazon has made a deal with Games Workshop to produce Warhammer 40K shows if you guys are interested. So, if you guys don't know, Amazon has been making a lot of like leaps and bounds on their own personal content like Netflix back in the day. So thank you to Christian Hoffer at comicbooks.com and Chase Carter at Dicebreakers for giving us these interesting details. So a lot of positive news has been coming out from Games Workshop. And now we have officially heard that it has been signed over film and TV rights to Amazon as part of a deal to produce a live action Warhammer 40K content. Now it has also been confirmed that Henry Cavill, a known Warhammer fan, will be starring and executive producing this content. And I believe, Noir, you had more specific details of what 40K universe we're going to be discussing or getting a preview of.
So rumor has it, and even by these are just rumors, that it's most likely that Henry is going to cast himself as the Emperor, and we are going to see the formation of a lot of the factions that we've come to know and love in the Warhammer universe. For those familiar, the Emperor birthed a bunch of children known as the Primarchs, and then those Primarchs would then eventually go on to lead their own separate armies, all the way up into the Horus War, where Horus, another child of the Emperor, decides that he wants to be the Emperor instead, and it just gets awesome. They would be absolutely foolish not to go this route because the Horus Inquisition, is one of the more popular storylines in all of Warhammer. So, yeah, I think there is some level of truth to these rumors, and I, for one, cannot wait to see the battle between the Emperor and Horus. This, of course, being the battle that leaves the Emperor in a catatonic state on his throne to sit there forever as the guiding light throughout the galaxy for all humanity. But that's just what I've heard.
He becomes what he didn't want to be. But yeah, no, I feel like there is a lot to say, and also you guys know he like this actor Henry Cavill is gonna bring in his own fandom base just because of Witcher. They're like, yes, all the fans are coming in.
Yeah, that whole
Jiva,
situation was really funny. I loved him as the Witcher. I loved him as Superman. That whole thing, we were all just like not sure what to think about it. But he's still on his feet, and I would be super happy to see him in anything really.
mm-hmm. Well, you know what, Peter? Do you mind if I cast you a question about Yub Nub?
Yeah. Why not? I'll take this one. Sure. All right. This feature is brought to us by Jeffrey Dome Sanchez by CV2. Okay, Atomic Mass Games will release Yub Nub Squad Pack for Star Wars Shatterpoint miniatures game into retail on February 16, 2024, at a retail price of $59.99. So while Leia Organa and Chief Chirpa lead one squad against the Empire in the other product called Ewoks Ambush the Empire in Star Wars Shatterpoint, R2D2 and C3PO plan a sneak attack with the Ewok Shaman Logray. They are supported by the ever feisty Wicket. That's another Ewok, in case you're not up on like which Ewoks have what names, as a secondary unit, and two Ewok trappers wielding spears as supporting units. Spears, huh? There is so much wrong with this. I'm barely holding it together here. First of all, R2D2 and C3PO are planning an attack. Okay, in a jungle. Okay, the one that talks, I've never seen him plan anything hostile ever. And the other one, how does R2, how does he move in a jungle? I mean, I'm just like he can move if like it's on a sidewalk and if everything's smooth, or like on in the Death Star when there's corridors, but out in the jungle, that thing is not going to move anywhere. But that's the big point is that Ewoks, what a ridiculous thing. I mean, the Ewoks fighting stormtroopers. I mean, the stormtroopers just demolish these guys. These guys shouldn't have a chance. So a miniatures game that features Ewoks, I hope they're like with one ATST, you can like just knock out 20 of them in one round. Okay, that might be fun. That would be fun. But unfortunately, I don't think that's the way it is. No, sorry, I got a little. That's it in a nutshell, guys.
Right? Well, don't panic. Stay calm.
I just love how long and how consistently Star Wars has been pissing us off.
Well, if you really want to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just like Lucas makes like an awesome sandwich, but he's like, I'm gonna add one ingredient. That's just gonna mess up everybody's day.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, before we start all the Star Wars anger, I feel like we need to roll into the next subject. What do you think, Javion?
Sure. In
Wait,
fact,
sorry.
I'm so excited. I'm happy to let Noir go first. In fact, Noir, why don't you jump ahead of me?
You know what? That's so kind of you, and I think I'm gonna do so with another Free League game. Have I commented on Free League games 3 episodes in a row? Yeah, and I'm not gonna stop, baby. Today we got Symbaroum. It's a Two Runes of Symbaroum 5e rulebook adaptation. So let's just get straight into it. Again, thanks to our friend Jeffrey Dome Sanchez over at ICV2 for this information. Free League is publishing announced The World of Symbaroum and The Throne of Thorns 1 and 2 Ruins of Symbaroum 5e rulebook adaptations, which will release on April 19th, 2024. The World of Symbaroum is a 5e rulebook that adds to lore and settings information originally found in the Ruins of Symbaroum Game Master Guide. The book goes into the history of the world, settings, and going in depth about characters, places, and historical events. It provides plot hooks and secrets for GMs, and it will retail $44.99. The Throne of Thorns 1 features the first two parts of Throne of Thorns Adventure Chronicles. Players will be sent on an adventure into the Davakar Forest and will find their way past murderous cultists, hostile elves, and warriors of the Beast Clan. The book includes a 5e adapted rule set and will retail for $44.99. Now, some of you may have heard of this game before. It was with Modifius using the Modifius 2D20 system, but now we are in the 5e system thanks to Free League. So check it out if you want a bit of a darker environment for your 5e gaming.
Very, very nice. No, that sounds great. So very grimdark, very nice. And now we can roll into I'm so sorry. Go, Javion.
Excellent. All right, sweet. So this headline comes to us from Chase Carter of Dicebreaker, and it's all about Cascadia. If you're a big fan of the game like me, and maybe you're still looking forward to the Cascadia Landmarks expansion that was just announced and released this year, then you'll be even more excited to hear about a flip and roll and write spinoff. This, Marcus, do me a favor, grab my soapbox real fast.
Oh my god, we get it. You think trains are cool. So overrated.
Okay, I've been saying this for years. When you have a roll and write game that uses cards, a lot of people will call it a flip and write. Why? Because you flip cards and you write things. But you know, there's one word that literally encompasses both of those ideas at once. And I've been saying it for years. Are you ready? All flip and write games should be renamed draw and draw games. First of all, it makes so much more sense. Then you're not just flipping cards. Sometimes you're just drawing the card and it's already face up. Sometimes you don't have to worry about like the other side of it. It just rolls off the tongue so much nicer. Say it, draw and draw. Ooh, yeah, it's like butter. All I'm saying is you can do a lot more with a lot less. Anyway, Cascadia Rolling is going to have two separate games, Cascadia Rolling Hills and Cascadia Rolling Rivers. They're draw and roll games because there's a central die that you roll, and then there's a bunch of cards and a whole pamphlet thing that you're paper thing that you're writing on, putting all your habitats and stuff. The only real difference between the two games is that one of them has to do with the prairies, Rolling Hills, and one of them has to do with the rivers, Rolling Rivers. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see a game that's won tons of awards being adapted into a draw and write, draw and roll, pardon me, a format, because big fans of the series who sort of follow and collect all this stuff, like myself, are going to have even more content to play with once it finally is released. And hopefully we get more information about it as the coming months share brand new surprises for us.
Oh,
Very
nice.
Like draw a card. You mean like actual
Yes.
draw, like from
Yes.
a deck? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes
So, game
sense.
designers, take note, please, of Javion's request. It's just a simple request to make it smoother. And you could do draw X draw too, times draw. It
Think about how
works.
often do you say flip a card versus draw a card? Like, think about it. Just think about it.
Point
Good
taken.
point.
Yeah.
All right. You know what? I think that moved me so much that, hey, I know I forgot to announce this earlier, but we do have an interview coming right up. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to zap the bundle boss, zap the crowdfunders. And
She's got manly power.
I have
outta
so
here.
much power, and so I'm going to summon forth Jay Bruce from Indie by Night on a Gen Con as well, because I have that power as a host. So if you just give me a moment, I'm going to go ahead and summon them. Jay Bruce.
Everybody put on their sunglasses. Jay Bruce.
Hello.
Welcome to TableTakes.
Little technical difficulties.
Sorry, I didn't do the ceremony complete. I need to do a little bit more.
Keep dancing,
ceremony
Monza!
for the-
Hello,
I'm
Jay
sorry,
Bruce.
it's hard.
Can you
This
hear
is
us?
very
I
hard.
can. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
there we go.
It's on. Good to
We
see
did
you.
it.
Welcome to TableTakes.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, guys.
Absolutely. We're glad that you take time to come and hang out with us because we would love to sell our audience on your show. That's why we're here. It's like TableTakes and Jay Bruce, Indy My Night getting together. So let's jump right into it. We're going to ask you about you and everything. But first of all, tell us about Jay Bruce show, your show, Indy by Night.
Yeah, Indie by Night is our Vampire the Masquerade show, where we have a group of individuals, mostly our main cast of Kindred, as they're called, that go ahead and try to make up fantastic and sometimes getting a little bit darker story and trying to climb up the social ladder that is the Camarilla inside of the wonderful town of Indianapolis.
Which, of course, really speaks to us, given that Indianapolis is like our second home. I would say among all of us, we list our top cities, Indianapolis would show up near the top of every single one of our lists because we love Gen Con. We do. So good choice. That's probably what got you into Gen Con TV, by the way.
You have to play the audience, really. So I just hear Gen Con, it's downtown. Why not, you know?
Right.
yeah.
Very, very smart. So you're smart as well as creative.
I wouldn't go that far, but I like to know what people like.
But you're plotting. I mean, you obviously had a plot here.
Indeed.
Somebody help me. Javion Noir.
I got a question. I was wondering, so what is your coterie comprised of?
We have a total of 4 Kindred. We have some guests that do rotate in, but the 4 main characters are Eva, Dimitri, Carter, and Michael. And we have a Ravnos, a Ventru, a Bruja, and a Tremere.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
Represent.
exactly.
I'm not very familiar with Vampire the Masquerade, although I know many of us in this call are. Could you explain a little bit more what some of those words mean? It just sounds like you're chanting some incantation from the game that I just have never heard before.
Yes, that's why we cut him off.
Exactly. If I finish any more, it's real bad for Indianapolis. No, so all of the things I were just listed are different clans that have sort of different powers based off what they're sort of known for. So Tremere is very much into like blood magic, while Ventru is the very more social individuals, have more powers of dominance and stuff like that. Bruja like to solve problems with their fists 9 times out of 10. And Ravnos are a little bit different. They're like the roguish type that like to break and enter and live life in the fast lane.
Interesting. Okay, so it sounds like a D&D party, but more vampire themed.
Yes, if every player was a vampire, it would be yes, absolutely.
Gotcha.
I guess my question is that with these like the worlds that you're building and also have rotating cast, do you also have like a favorite NPC that is your baby that you always make sure comes up in every other scene or something like that?
I did have one. The Prince of Indianapolis, which is like the ruler of that area, was very much one of my favorite characters to actively play. He was very charismatic, very this is my room, you get to be in it though. It was very fun to do until the group made a terrible decision and decided to run a car into them, and it did not turn out well for that individual, so I no longer get to play the NPC.
I'm sorry. This is like the 3rd campaign that I've found that people have discovered that cars can destroy vampires. Is that just going to be a new thing? Cars
I hope
versus
not.
vampires.
I really hope not, because a lot of times the car wins.
Sunlight, silver, cars.
Okay. So my question I've been dying to ask you, Jay Bruce, is like, Gen Con is in Indianapolis. So within your world of Vampire the Masquerade, do the vampires go to Gen Con?
We've been, as of so far in the story, we've been going through late fall and we're currently wrapping into end of January at this point. We're about to have a time skip where we're about to find out the new Prince of Indianapolis. And weirdly enough, it is going to coincide to like the weekend that is Gen Con, because there's going to be a big feeding frenzy that has to go through. And that's going to be one of the busiest times that people are in Indianapolis. So it's going to
Feeding
be,
frenzy. Wait,
it's going to be wonderful.
wait. A
Wait, what?
vampire feeding frenzy? That
So-
it's in the fictional world though.
Right,
Okay.
fictional, not in real life. Right?
Okay. I mean, we have the food trucks, but I think that's a different thing.
That sometimes.
Speaking of Gen Con, it brings out all sorts of people. And I'm wondering if any of these people that your coterie has run into before, like the Garu or hunters or any kind of mages.
We have run into a few werewolves that had a lot of fun trying to, this is my turf, no, this is my turf, and a lot of teeth were just shown, but no actual combat was had. And then they have run into a few hunters as well that did
Ooh.
end up staking a few of them, but were able to go ahead and take care of business and then remove said stake. And for those of you who aren't very familiar with the Vampire the Masquerade, being staked is painful, but it more or less just puts you in like a comatose state. It doesn't actually kill your character for the most part. It just makes it like you're just having a date. What is it called? Sleep paralysis. It's like where you understand everything is going on, but you literally can't function or react to it, and it just seems like my horrible nightmare.
Yeah. Especially if it's done by a hunter. Then you're about to have a bad time.
Exactly what I'm saying.
Oh,
Exactly.
man. So I guess my further questions are like, is there going to be like definitely a special episode to really, really tune into? And other than, of course, the new crowning king of Indianapolis, is there any ones you want to kind of shout out?
Yeah, so we had a couple of really interesting episodes, but 2 episodes ago, if you go over, I believe it is definitely going to be on my YouTube, which we can go ahead and post up later. But on my YouTube episode 2 episodes ago is the biggest masquerade breach that this coterie has had, and they are in the process of trying to backpedal and try to figure out how to fix this because we're talking about people climbing up buildings with like punching hole in concrete and disappearing live on camera. And it is very interesting to say the least of how they are in the process of trying to fix this.
Your party just did not care about the masquerade at all.
Oh, this is very public.
No, it's one of those things where the Ventru is very much I'm the biggest ego in the room, and there is a Baron that said, no, I'm the biggest ego, and they decided to have a fight in the middle of an apartment complex with people recording. So and we know how people are with social media. Everything just gets uploaded to all the socials as quickly as possible if people start going invisible or climbing up buildings. So it's very interesting, but we are getting ready, like I said, do a time skip, which we're doing half the cast since they are trying to figure out how to do this. Half of it is trying to deal with the cam side, while the people that actually broke the masquerade are trying to go into hiding a little bit, trying to not be just hunted down by everyone. So we're in the process of half the current party is going to be bringing new vampires in to sort of like fill up that time gap in about 5 episodes. So it should be episode 55. We will be actually having the actual new announcement of the new Prince of Indianapolis.
Ooh.
That sounds cool. You mentioned 55 episodes. I have a couple of quick questions for you. First of all, how long have you been doing Indie by Night?
So this is the first season of Indie by Night. And this is really my first run with VTM in general. I've had a couple of one-offs that I've tried to do, like just to learn the system. And also, I'm just a huge fan of Vampire the Masquerade as I've sort of learned it this probably last 8 months. But we're actively, like I said, this is our first show with it. And Peter was kind enough to say, hey, we're looking for a vampire. I said, I got you. And so no, yeah, we're looking at the one that we just filmed on Tuesday was episode 50. So I am very excited. It's one of the longer lasting shows that I've had the pleasure of running on my channel as well.
That's really cool. Okay. Wow. It sounds like you've been doing this for a while. That's so awesome. Well, then my other question was going to be actually, you kind of answered it a little bit. What was the process like of deciding what show you wanted to do? Like, why is Vampire Masquerade what you wanted to do?
So I have been, as far as tabletop streaming and putting on shows for, did a lot of Shadowrun for the last 3, almost 4 years. So I'm a lot more of the dark and gritty sort of role playing games compared to the D&D where you are the hero. I like a lot of gray area of trying to do the best for the situation right now and then deal with the consequences later type of gameplay. And Vampire, it has a lot of that and a lot of, I know I'm the bad person in this situation. And so it's trying to be like, what is it, Wreck-It Ralph, where just because you're a bad guy doesn't mean you're the bad guy. And that's where I like to live in my RPG space. And so I was looking through, and VTM, we have some people who are newer to role playing in our cast. And it is a more simplified system compared to something like, say, Shadowrun or something like that. So it was nice to be able to get into the door, bring them into the system, and then really sort of dive into the world that we're all creating.
Oh, it
So
sounds
when we talked about you coming on the show, when when we had when we were getting to know each other, one of the things that we talked about is how do you run Vampire, given how dark it is and how dark it can be, but yet avoid getting us in trouble with the YouTube and Twitch content guidelines and stuff like that. How has that journey worked out for you in this? How's that? What are your new thoughts on that topic?
Yeah, I think it's definitely doable. There is quite a bit of stuff that Vampire is sort of has a bad rap of having as I was doing research for it. But the new additions are a lot more inclusive. There is a lot of darker themes that go with it. And either we do fade to black for those themes if they like sort of like not necessarily need to happen for the story wise, but if it's a thing that this vampire does really well and this is like where they want to shine, if it's maybe not appropriate for guide, like for viewer, we'll go ahead and fade to black, come back, it's taken care of, but then they have the result that they're looking for. Or it's something that we've been really like happy with that's been really well is a content warning. If it's not as far as being like absolutely explicit, if we can go ahead and put a content warning that might be just soft triggers for people, then we can go ahead and go at that and sort of give people a heads up to be able to turn off the screen for a moment or mute it for a bit, and then we will go ahead and let them know when the trigger warning is over. And we've seen a lot of really positive feedback with that when it comes to the
Right.
darker side of Vampire.
You've mentioned that you've had a number of guests on your shows. Have all the guests that you've had on been kindred, or have they been visited by other creatures of the night?
That if my players all believe them to be of kindred, but they've never ever checked. They just sort of assume that when they're playing VTM, they're playing with other vampires. But no, it's we've had one mortal come onto the show, and one thin blood, which is for those of you very weak vampire that is barely enough to be a vampire. And then we also had a werewolf also come onto the show as well.
Oh, see that's what's up.
So within the world, I mean, this is a VTM question. Within the world of VTM, how do you check to see if somebody's a vampire?
So there's a couple things you can do. There's a couple of merits that sort of help you check for those things. There's also a couple of powers you could do to either taste the blood of this individual and like, oh, hey, you have some, I could tell that you are a vampire, or I could tell you're a werewolf. There's also, you could sense the beast is what they call your inner demons that sort of fuel the vampire, whether or not they are mortal or whether or not they are vampire. And they 2 out of the 4 people had these sort of powers or these abilities to use, and they just like, no, it's fine, they're playing with us, so they have to be vampires, right guys? So it
A
was
wild assumption.
right. That's what I'm saying. So no, it's very much a lot of fun to sort of sneak those things in and just see how I can bring our guests into sort of changing the story up a little bit. So
That's sneaky. I
It
like
is
it.
very sneaky.
And have you kept the same cast of players throughout the whole campaign so far, or did you have to switch anybody out?
we've had a couple of people that we did sort of extended stories with the guests to sort of try them out and see if how they sort of meshed with the coterie. But the main four people that we started the show with are still actively part of the show, which is something that I is just blown away because scheduling
Yeah.
is every worst nightmare for every tabletop show. So the fact we've been able to do it and have, I think we've only missed 1 week in the last 55 or 50 episodes where we haven't had one. So it's been pretty continuous, which I've been very happy with.
And what would you say is like the dynamic of your group? I think every party is a little bit different. Like my players are all super silly and they just like crack jokes the whole time and they don't really take anything super seriously. But I know other groups are different.
Yeah, it is very much a lot of times it's joking, but then there's times when like, oh, the Prince of Indianapolis decides to walk in. It's very, nope, this is how it's
Ooh.
supposed to be. So they very much read the room off of each other, but 9 times out of 10, they're probably looking to try to figure out how to blow something up and walk away from it.
All right, I want to squeeze in one last question before we have to go. About 30 seconds.
Yeah.
What tell us a little bit about you, Jay
Yes.
Bruce.
So I have been a content creator for 8 years and actively streaming for 6. Been going off of mostly on Twitch, have a lot of YouTube content coming out, mostly tabletop RPG. So if you're interested in that stuff, again, I'm live Monday through Friday over most Monday through Friday besides Tuesday on my channel, twitch.tv/jbruce. And then on Tuesdays, I get the pleasure of running on Gen Con from 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for some Vampire the Masquerade.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you, Jay Bruce, for joining us. And this will conclude another amazing episode of Table Takes. But don't go far, because just in a couple hours, we will have Sarah's Table, where Sarah will get you into the holiday spirit with her cozy Christmas corner. This is where she listens. Come listen to her read non-traditional holiday stories and talk about her holiday favorites. In Indie by Night, yes, like what we've just been talking about. Yes, with half of the coterie in the wind after faking their final death, Michael and Carter head to Indianapolis to try and settle things. It's Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific. On Actor Outing next week, we will have a special episode of Table Takes Plays. Yes, join Marcus Mays and some of the Table Takes cast. Exactly who TBD, as they play something TBD. I'm not sure. And then on Thursday, 5 p.m. Pacific time, Roll with Rem. Please come watch us then. And then Friday next week, we'll be back here for Table Takes. I won't be because I'm going to be on vacay for the next 2 weeks. But Bonsai will be here. Javion, Noir, Marcus, and Panita will be here for them. And I don't know, do we have something, Marcus? Do you have something we can say about Table Takes Plays?
I'm gonna be there. Me and Bryce, we're taking over the
You and
double
Bryce.
B's.
Are
Double
you gonna play?
B's
Do
up
you know what
in
you're gonna
here.
play?
Mystery surprise to end the year.
It'll be a surprise. It's a surprise. All right. Okay. Well, that is it for our show today. Thank you to my delightful co-host, Javion, Bonsai Baby, the Noir Enigma. Thanks to the Gen Con TV crew, Marcus Mays, Steve Connard, Sarah Moore, and Tanel Lovett. And thanks to our guest, Jay Booze, the producer. Jay Booze. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Jay Bruce, the producer and DM for Indie by Night. I'm sorry, the storyteller for Indie by Night. And thanks most of all to you for watching, hanging out with us in chat, convincing, and following our crazy nut jokes. Yeah, it's a nutty show. That's right. Remember, follow Jake on TV for more. I'm going to get through this. I'm going to get through this. The more of the best 4 days in gaming all year long, right here on twitch.tv/JakeOnTV. And by follow, I mean click the follow button, please. Thank you.
Do
That's
it.
it. Goodbye. That's it in a nutshell.